Dun, dun, dun. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Who What Now Gaming Podcast for consumers by consumers, where we ask the questions: who are you, what got you into gaming, and what type of gamer are you now? But none of those questions are relevant today because we are getting deep into the difference between remastered and remade video games. Today,
That's right.
I am joined with a wonderful friend, tech guy of the show, and I almost said guest appearer, but you're not a guest appearer. You're like a frequent flyer. At this point, I'm just going to have to get you points. Please help me welcome Noah from Nerdy Noah Reads.
Yeah, I'm here. I got my hot cocoa on this chilly-ish day. It's Pennsylvania, so it could be summer outside by now. I don't know. But
Is that what you're drinking, hot cocoa?
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
I'm a hot cocoa dude.
I did
I have weenie, but it's good. I like it.
I have the full like gamer array of drinks right now, which is just my water bottle, right? And then a whole gallon of tea. That's just like
There you go. That's
yeah. I was like, I didn't want to pour it into a cup because I was like, oh, if I finish it,
then you'll just have cups everywhere.
Yeah, so I was like, I'll just bring the whole jug. I'm the only one that drinks it anyway, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
How you doing, dude?
I'm doing
It's been a hot
good.
minute.
I know it's been a minute. You have been just chugging out the content, my guy. I'm so loving everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Loving the streams on the weekends. I'm telling you guys, if you haven't checked out this guy streaming on the weekends, you've got to do it. It is such an absolute riot. Like I look forward to it every weekend, just hanging out, hearing you just go on about stuff. I mean, I have to say people don't realize, I don't think, what a skill and a talent it takes to be able to basically dialogue the entire time you're playing a video game. Like,
to just bullshit your way through a whole...
You're so good at it, though. But you're so good at it. It doesn't feel like bullshit. You're just so good at just explaining exactly what's going to... And, you know, communicating with chat and just the shenanigans that we get up to when you don't read what we wrote
when I don't
like
listen.
5 minutes later and then have no recollection as to what it all we said. And, it's just a great time. So that's been fun. And then obviously your guests, just top notch guests and conversations. So every time I get to come back, it just feels like an honor to be here and to hang out.
It.
So yeah,
thank you.
So pumped to be here and really pumped about this. I think you and I do best when we just kind of get into the weeds about a certain subject because
100%.
That's where we are. That's where our lives with gaming and being
that's where
dads
I live, in the
and
weeds.
having lives. Like we want to talk about the nitty gritty sometimes and just get nerdy with it. So
absolutely,
hell yeah,
I like that. Get nerdy with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've been really enjoying the stream. As of this recording, we're playing Silent Hill 2.
Such a good game.
Dude, I'm not a horror game person, but I've been like slowly getting into it and I've been enjoying it and stuff. But
it's a long one. It's an intense, like it's a journey. It's a grind.
Yeah.
But I think the atmosphere is just something else with that game. I think they nailed it.
I think they nailed it too, and I think that's what's so important about I kind of wanted to have this episode because specifically for Silent Hill 2, and that Silent Hill 2 is actually a remade game, not remastered.
Exactly.
And I think that's really important. So those who may not know specifically what the exact difference is between remade and remastered, do you want to maybe like kind of kick that one off, like what that is to you, or maybe?
Yeah. Based on my knowledge of it is that, a remaster is probably the slightly more common of the two, although remakes are becoming more and more common as well. But remasters is basically when a company takes one of their really well beloved games and just kind of goes in, updates the textures, updates some of the look of some of the character models, and basically gets it as close as they can to up to snuff with modern hardware. The core gameplay mechanics, how things work, what you're doing, the basic look of it is not going to change a whole lot. But it will look more similar to a modern game. The best example of remasters that I think of right off the bat, not the best, but like a very common one, are the Last of Us games. Especially Last of Us Part 1, it released on PlayStation 3, was probably one of the most graphically advanced, best-looking games to ever release on that console. And then they remastered it for the PlayStation 4, and they remastered it again for the PlayStation 5. And if you play it on the PlayStation 5, it basically feels and looks like you're playing a modern title. When they remaster games that are significantly older than like the PS3 generation or like early in the PS3 generation, you can definitely still tell. But there's been some really good examples of remasters. And then there's remakes, which are where they take the game and what happens in the game and the story and the characters, that all stays the same, but it's completely rebuilt to modern specs, modern engine, and there might even be some small adjustments to how things go or controls and all of those things. Silent Hill 2 is obviously the most recent example of that. Another good one would be the Final Fantasy VII remake. Obviously, just a completely changed game.
Yeah, I forgot about
but
that.
the story is the same. And then the Mafia 1, they did a complete remake of the first Mafia game a few years back, which I played and really enjoyed. So that is kind of the down and dirty about the difference between the two.
Yeah. I think you nailed it on the head. It's definitely one of those things where, like, to remake a game is starting completely from the ground up with just the base material. And remastering, I mean, you're just making it look prettier than it did. And and I gotta say, some of the first things that came to mind were that some of these things can be done really, really well, and some of these can absolutely flop. And one of the big things to me is picking a game to remaster that wasn't as popular, or the demand for it to come back is not there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's definitely happened like a couple of times. And there's kind of like it's kind of interesting to think about, because one of my favorite games of all times is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And they have I don't know if it ever got a remaster, but it definitely got remade. So that it could be, it could run on, I think they had it for like the DS. They had it for they definitely have it for the Switch and stuff. And as someone who thoroughly enjoyed the Nintendo 64 version, it was more fun for me to go back and play as it was presented on the Nintendo 64. And like, I don't know if anybody knows, but if you have a Switch, there is like an app that you can download that will give you like a couple like Nintendo 64 games and stuff. And in that is Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. And with that, it plays in the exact style and pixel format as the Nintendo 64 did. And it is so nostalgic to go back and play the game. But one of the things that I think gets lost when you just revamp a game like a Nintendo 64 game, and that is that the capabilities of the Nintendo 64 when Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time came out, like, was pushing really, really cool boundaries of like having an open world game. When the game got remade to look way more smooth, everything wasn't all boxy and triangles and stuff, and everything made it like it was very, almost like updated.
Yeah.
The feel of the world, at least to me playing it, the feel of the world felt so empty.
Yeah.
Because the game size stayed the same. Like, it was still a big place to explore, but like the main, area that you would like explore, it was very empty. And it was definitely very empty back in, like, when you played it with the Nintendo 64. But the 64 version, I don't know, because of the downgraded graphics, or the at the time really cutting edge stuff, the game felt like the game was supposed to be.
Yeah,
but
I
now,
definitely think what you're talking about is almost like a third lane in this, where it's like they remake a game but they don't actually change anything about the game at all other than the visuals. And I think Nintendo has done that a lot. And that is definitely, you've got to be really careful because, like you said, either one, you're doing that and it's just kind of like a lazy remake where it's not a game where even people necessarily there's a huge demand for, or it's a legendary title like Ocarina of Time. And if you just make that look better on a newer system and don't do anything to I don't know, polish the gameplay or enhance the experience, obviously you have to be careful and pay respects. But I don't know, it doesn't it's hard with Ocarina because there's a lot of people who will say, no, don't touch it, just make it look better on an HD screen and leave it alone. But I totally get what you're saying. It feels like when you're billing it as this huge remake and selling it for $60 and it's nothing's changed except for that the visuals look better and it's called a remake, but it feels like a remaster. And there's definitely been some examples of that just don't feel good at all. And I think there are some games that, as good and as legendary as they are, they belong in the era that they were made. And I think Ocarina of Time is probably one of those. If they are going to re-release Ocarina of Time someday, I think it needs to get like the Final Fantasy VII treatment, where they create a new game that follows the story of Ocarina of Time. But adds to it, enhances it, changes things. And I don't think people would be too upset about that if they made it in the new art style. I think maybe a little bit further down the line, maybe for that one. But I think that would be a game that would definitely that would be a success. But they need to not just remake it. They need to completely take the story and the base gameplay functions and then do something new and exciting, just to not to keep the heart of the game.
Right.
But until they're willing to do that, I think we just should have just left it be where it was.
Yeah, I think the only benefit that I've seen so far with it being like remade was that there was definitely a lot of people who were like, "Oh, this is beautiful. This is a big fan favorite of mine. Like I loved it, and I loved replaying it, with better lighting, better whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And then I think maybe for me, it would be an easier way to get this like next generation to understand why we loved these older games so much as we grew up. Because there's a lot of times where I went back and I started playing Ocarina of Time with the Nintendo 64 design and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool because my kids watched for like a little bit, but after a while they were like, this looks terrible, and like they like lost interest. But I was like, this is what I grew up with, this is what it looked like.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like to be able to kind of to share that game and share that experience with someone of the next generation who's grown up with what we see now, I could definitely see it being like a really cool experience for them to you
and that's probably why they did it. Probably why they did it. The problem is like what you're saying though, is that if you make the game look more modern but don't change anything about it, the game's going to feel like a shitty game. And to those that don't have that nostalgia to it, like I never played Ocarina of Time. If I go and play Ocarina of Time right now, as someone who has a great respect for Nintendo and everything, I might find it still to be an enjoyable experience. But if you're trying to get a little kid who's just starting, they're going to be like, this game, like, I'm going to go play the new Mario game or the new Zelda game. Why would I play this?
Right.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you made this so that it looks better, so maybe kids will play it, but you've improved your gameplay and your worlds since then. So why would they choose this over that? And also, why are you charging $60 for it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things. Like,
because I'm pretty sure
pricing.
they did, or maybe they don't now, but I'm pretty sure they did at least at one point. That's what Nintendo does.
Yeah, I'm sure that at some point. I mean, it's you put all this money into it and then you release this game, but like we all see, like the consumers, we see it as like, oh, we've already played this game, why would I pay full price for it? But as the developers, they're like, no, we had to recreate this
It's a
game.
brand new game.
Like this is a brand new game.
Yeah.
So like I understand, and I guess I could see both sides. I just don't see it as being like something that everyone is going, like you have to be marketing it to a very specific set of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of like falls in the same line with remastered games, especially with one of your favorite games, Mass Effect series.
Yeah.
You have the whole trilogy that got remastered, and was put out, and like for like and I feel like you feel the same way with. This was such a nostalgic thing. This is like your favorite, game and stuff, and then they remaster it. To me, when my memory of the game looking a certain way and then playing it as a remaster, the one detail that I cannot stop noticing and seeing every time is their eyes. Their eyes are wild. Yeah. And I've been noticing this in like a lot of remastered games. I don't know what it is about remastering games, but no one can seem to get eyes right. Like the eyes look wild in remastered games.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's about.
No, I agree. The Mass Effect. Now, I am generally a big fan of the trilogy remaster. I think they did a great job with that, in the sense that they knew that they were mostly making this for core fans. They knew they had a hell of a lot of them. The Mass Effect trilogy is one of the most popular video games ever made.
Yeah, it's a huge following.
So they knew they had money here, and they took time to kind of smooth out some of the back end stuff that was kind of annoying and stuff that even now just wouldn't work, like some of the server stuff they took away, and then they just especially I would say in the latter two games, those games really responded well to a remaster. Like you said, those eyes, there's definitely something going on. But I would say that that is the worst in the first title. The first game
it's really bad.
Is remastered, and it is definitely an example of it still just doesn't look good, and it still looks rough. And it's like because it's not, because the first game should have been remade. The other two games, I think a remaster. They really looked good with the remaster. 3 especially so. And yes, some of their gameplay mechanics and stuff, it's clearly, you could tell they are games of their time.
Sure.
But still, it's solid enough that I think that they did really well. But the first game is still really old feeling, really old looking. It just looks like it's just clear in 4K now. But it's like, and I know they did a lot more work than that. Like, I know that the shooting is easier and is smoother, and there are things that if you actually went and played the PS3 version or the Xbox version, it would feel a lot worse. So I know that it is better, but just strictly from a visual standpoint, it's a tough one to get through.
I also think something that I think it's definitely something that we don't think about, because I don't think I even had this realization until literally like we were just like a minute ago, and that has got to be that, because I'm thinking of like Call of Duty and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So back when Call of Duty Black Ops 2 comes out, I'm playing, we're all gaming, doing Black Ops 1. We're all trying to just waiting for that initial okay, it's gonna drop like in a day, it's gonna be tomorrow, so we're all playing today so that we can pick it up tomorrow, and we're all like refreshed and everything. And I remember playing Black Ops 1, enjoying it and having so much fun. And then Black Ops 2 comes out, and we you put it in and you start the game up, and you're like, wow, this looks incredible. The technology growth, like we are hitting new limits every single year. This is amazing. And then the next Call of Duty comes out the next year, and we're like, whoa, this is insane, this is crazy. And then now we're all the way almost 10 years later, and we're looking at Black Ops 6 now, and there's been a Call of Duty title every single year, and we're looking at it now, and we're like, this is cutting edge, this is the stuff. And I guarantee that if you went back and played Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2, you'd be like, oh, this actually looks kind of like shit. And I think you know what I mean? But it's like we kind of we forget that, like, as we continue, like, the game qualities and visualizations are growing immensely, and they're getting better and better and better. And so to see a game that we loved and remember it looking so amazing, and then it gets the remastered, and it just kind of looks like somebody washed the colors together instead of just, what I mean? And so it almost looks shitty, whereas, like, it might actually be way better than the game was originally, but it's not to what we're used to.
You needed to
so
go
it still
a step
looks
further.
Shitty.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened with Mass Effect 1.
Yeah.
I think Mass Effect 2 and 3 responded a lot better to the remaster. Mass Effect 1 it just was like, it got them about 25% of the way there. And I think they knew that. And I think that there was maybe an argument in the studio that said, hey, we can't overdo it here, because there are things about this game that we simply cannot fix if we're just trying to put out a fresh edition. So I think they were well aware of that and just did what they felt they could do and didn't overdo it, so that expectations would be, because as soon as you log into that game, oh, this is the same game. Okay, this is the old game. There's no trying. They're not playing tricks on you at all. And so I respect them that way. I think they know that eventually that, I would like to think that maybe, provided that their upcoming releases are successful, I would love to see them do a remake of the entire trilogy someday. And I think if they did that, that would be really, really cool. But, it's hard. The remakes are, especially if they're really old games, they cost as much as making a brand new title. Yeah. And a lot of times studios don't want to do that, because they're like, we already sold this
is
game.
Heavy.
We already sold this game. We're not going to, you do not sell as many remakes. I mean, I would say, unless it's like the Final Fantasy VII, where it's like, this is literally a PlayStation 1 game that was turn-based, and we're completely changing everything about it in every possible conceivable way except for the story. I think that sold like bonkers, and I don't think it was as if it was a new game. Yeah. But Mass Effect isn't old enough yet. I think the latter two games are not old enough yet to quite get that same reception. So,
yeah, what is kind of nice is that there are some games that will almost do a remastered in a way, or not remastered, a remake in a way, but they twist it into being like an entirely brand new game, and those ones are incredible, because they do it so well and so seamlessly that we, as like the consumer, we don't mind, we don't care. And like the big one right now that I'm like thinking of is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Yeah, it's an entirely brand new game, but we are still following the same anime timeline. Yeah. So when you're playing the game, you still get to go back and have the fight with, when Vegeta still comes to Earth, and you have Raditz, and then you move into the Cell Saga, and then you move into the Boo Saga, and then you move into the Tournament of Power, and you're like, this is something that we have been consistently we play every single game, even when they did like the spin-off one, which was like Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2, where you got to play a part of like the time committee, time cop, whatever the fuck you were, I don't remember, but
I don't know nothing about this at all,
dude. But it was so good. It was so good because you got to create your own character in the Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2, and you would go you were basically going with like Trunks, and you could go like through time, and you got to intervene in like the big major plot points of the anime, which was a lot of fun.
Oh,
And
hell
even
yeah.
that, it still had its own twist where it was like, unlike the anime, there was like another, BBEG that was calling the shots and making issues and causing trouble and stuff. And but Sparking Zero, we're going back and we're, we have now like what if moments.
Yeah.
Whereas, hey, we're still playing the same exact game, same exact storyline, but now the fighting is slightly different. The graphics are better.
Yeah.
It's now running on Real Engine 5 or 6 or whatever like the latest one is. But we also now have what if scenarios. And so it doesn't fall into the remake or remaster category,
Yeah.
but it's technically
It feels like
it's still the same game.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like it's almost like if you took the previous game, revamped everything, and then added all of the DLC content that was already in the previous games, and then put it in its own new game, and we're playing it, and no one is upset about it. Now, I'm not even upset about it. I love it. The game is fantastic and it's amazing.
Yeah,
but I definitely notice. You know?
I think that has to be done with such a careful handle, like you're implying, because if you take a game that is a legend, a game that is worthy of a remake, typically is a game that was wildly popular, has a cult following, is beloved. And
Absolutely.
So if you remake that and you make significant alterations to what this, again, I keep going back to the Final Fantasy VII remake situation. I feel like they had so much more license because they were literally taking a 64-bit turn-based adventure and turning it into a AAA action adventure RPG,
Sure.
But like even still, they stuck to a lot. The story and the general structure is of what happens is similar, but they did. I didn't play the game personally. I'm not a huge follower of, but I know enough about to know that there were some significant changes made. And I think that, a lot of people understood this is like, there are things that we can do now and we can tell now and we can show now that we just simply couldn't do with the previous version of this game, whether it's a cutscene, whether it's an explainer, whether it's a new area that you just heard about that we went. Now you get to actually go, instead of sending someone to do the job, you get to go do it, and so now they get to create this whole new area. I think that there are places where you can really expand while sticking to the core of the story. But if you try to name a game the same name and then tell a completely different story, you're going to get, some people will love that, but you're going to get people mad too. So, like I think about the Mafia 1 remake. I thought it was a really well done remake. I really liked it. But the issue is that it just wasn't, like you talked about earlier, it wasn't something that people were like crying out for. Like I personally love the Mafia games. A lot of people see them as like Wish.com Grand Theft Auto. And I don't at all. I see them just as a more story focused, more linear, more narrative driven version of that style of game. So I prefer them. Crazy enough. Sorry. That might get some hate, but I prefer them. I'm not a huge Grand Theft Auto guy at all. So I love them. I've played the first and then the third one, which was a more recent release, and neither of them were huge sellers, but I thought both of them were fantastic story-driven narrative experiences.
Mafia 3? You like Mafia 3?
Mafia 3 is one of my favorite games I've played. I loved the style of, you're out for revenge and you just slowly take back all the areas that were taken from you by the guy that messed with you, and you just slowly sap away all his power till you just walk in and go, "Hey buddy, this is my house now," and shoot him in the head. Like, I think that's pretty awesome. That whole vibe. Was it done? Was the story structure and characters done to the level of like a BioWare of the past, or even present, I would argue, based on my current experience. But like or like a Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously not. They're a much smaller studio, but I felt like it. What I felt like when I played Mafia 3 was this is a game that doesn't have a huge budget and that literally did the very best they could have possibly done with what they had. I thought it was an absolutely magical experience for the limitations that the studio had. I was blown away by it because I went into it knowing this is a smaller studio, this is a lower budget, and then I'm like, I'm having so much fun, and this feels like there's so much emotional weight to this story, and there's so much, and the gunplay feels good, and I just thought that while I could never put it up at that same level as some of those other games, I felt like it was just, they blew me away. And then I thought their remake was a similar thing. I felt like they really knew what they were doing with the remake and did a good job with it. But, you know, I know that neither of them were huge sellers, so I know that I'm in the minority there.
Yeah, I enjoyed Mafia 1. Mafia 2 was actually my favorite.
Yeah, that one just got remastered, and I didn't like it because it felt old. it had the Mass Effect 1 issue.
Yeah, I haven't played the remastered yet.
They remade the first one and then just remastered the second one.
Yeah,
and that didn't work for me. The remaster wasn't good enough. It felt yucky to me.
Right.
Current times. So it's exactly what happened with you with the Mass Effect remasters.
Yeah,
is exactly. But the difference is this company, they did remake their oldest game because they knew this just has to be redone, and they did a damn good job of it. And then you go from that to the remaster of 2, and it's like, nah, you needed to remake this one too, dog.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Mafia 3 was I attempted that one like 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Never beat it. I just didn't hit with me. Mafia 2 was really fun. I really liked how you said that it felt like a Wish.com version of like GTA.
Yeah.
Which I always kind of found funny because like it felt like the Mafia games were like the base for like the GTA. GTA went off and did their own thing. It was like more like the modern, but like still with all the chaos. And then there was like Saints Row, which basically like Saints Row 1 and 2 were like very like serious and linear. And like it's been very much growing into just being a fully comical, out there, bonkers, wild type of like GTA-ish games. And I gotta say, if you haven't played the Saints Row games, especially like the one with like Johnny, what's his name, Johnny Gats or something like that, and the one where you have to like, because there's one of my favorites is, I don't remember the name of it, but basically like aliens come over and like try to take over, and you have to like basically defend the world because you did so well in the last game, like that you're basically you're just given the position of president of the United States. Like it's like giving you the key to like the city, but they were like, you're just so badass, you get to run the country. Yeah, and then like the next game, I think you have to save or you're Johnny and you're trying to get out of hell. It's very chaotic. It's very funny, and like they're definitely some of my like just favorite like mess around games.
Yeah.
You get like superpowers and stuff in like those games, but like none of them are like they're very clearly and designed to be insanely overpowered. So like you can have a car or a bike and drive around, but eventually you can just unlock like Flash level speed, and so you never actually have to drive or ride around on a bike anymore. You just run stupid fast like all the time. And I think in one of them, like you basically get to fly. It's so bonkers and wild. It's so funny.
I tend to like my games slightly more grounded, if you will.
I do too. But if you're ever just needing an absolute mind melt of a game where you're just like, I need everything. Everything needs to just be like a joke.
Yeah.
Like somebody, it was like they were like, what do we do for this plot of this game? And they were like, we're gonna hire like 16 just comedy writers.
Yeah.
and they're going to make a story. And then you just have one person trying to compete over the next person for the best joke. And they're like, we're not throwing anything out. Everything goes into this game. And you're like, okay, it's so funny.
I've watched a lot of like YouTube content of those games where people like doing crazy stuff because it's just like, can you believe this game lets you do this type of thing?
Oh, it's bonkers. It's so funny. It's the craziest thing. But like those are games that like I wouldn't even mind if they got like a remaster or remade, because like I just enjoyed those games. They were very fun. They were meant to be silly. They were meant to be goofy. Like it was cool. But also if they never do, I'm actually kind of cool with it. Which actually kind of bleeds into my next subject, which is what would you like to see fully remade? Like I didn't think that Silent Hill 2 needed to be remade. Now that we're playing Silent Hill 2, I'm loving it. And I think they have done an amazing job remaking it, which just makes me think, what other games did I enjoy that I think would be absolute slammers if they remade it?
Yeah.
That's a toughie too, because you got to go back and like really go through because there's been some games that have been remade, quote unquote, that they've actually just sold as brand new games.
Yeah.
And that the first thing that comes to mind with those ones are the Pokemon games.
Yeah.
Because I remember I would grow up with like red. It was red, blue, and then you got the yellow, which you got to bring Pikachu around and stuff. But then like years later, they were like, here's fire red, here's like leaf green, here's this, that, and the other thing. And now I've been seeing with Pokemon and stuff, they've got like there's there was silver and pearl, and then there was like, I don't know, shiny silver or something else pearl or whatever. And it's like you're just making the same damn game, but you're just calling it different. But you're not even giving it a new name. You're just, you know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah, the Pokemon games are tough for me.
Yeah, it's like
I never played them as a child. That was never a thing. I got Let's Go Eevee on the Switch. Which was like a love letter to the OG games.
Oh, okay.
In very easy, very core gameplay loop. I think it's Pokemon Yellow basically. And I just feel like that I played that. That's like the core Pokemon sitch, and I tried a couple of the other ones, and I was just like, I did this. I played this.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and there
I
it
just
is.
don't that. And I think if you don't love the content and the variety of the different monsters and different enemies, it's hard for it because it feels like it's just the same story retold with a different set of characters. And that, I think, as someone who just isn't a core Pokemon fan, I see that, I've noticed that, and then it takes me out of it.
I mean, I would definitely agree, and like especially in the sense that like I did just find the one that that actually hit me into this whole spiral, which was they made there was gold and silver, which I had both of those. Then they made heart gold and soul silver, and I was like, that is the same thing. What are you talking about? And like. It's one of those things where like you play these games as a kid or like the older versions, and there was one of the core mechanics of the game is that you had to train each Pokemon. You had to give them their love and respect. And you had, like, when you would fight with, say you had a Charmander and you would, throw them into battle, and then you would win that battle, Charmander would get the XP. The now generation of games, you could have a Pokemon in your bag the entire game and never ever once take them out for a fight, and it'll still level up because everything is a shared XP thing. And I'm like, this generation won't understand us just trying to beat the next badge, so we got to go out there, run loops in all the grass, and just fight.
The grind
50
was
matches.
the core
we got to do 50 battles with each Pokemon.
Most of the game was the grind.
Oh my god, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and I could never, like, I have some of the, sorry, I got some downloaded ROMs from the internet of some of the old games, and Yeah, I
No
can't.
shame.
I
They're
can't
great.
do the
Go ahead.
grind. I enjoy them just to kind of mess around a little bit.
Yeah.
But if I hit a wall, eventually I'm just like, no, I can't. I'm not gonna go back and run around in the grass for
Dude, yeah, they were
3 hours.
they
I
were
can't.
big time consuming.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, and again, if that was the game for you when you were a kid, and that was part of, and like, then amazing, wonderful. I know, hey, and I know for sure, like, my two cousins. I think Bucky Ryan is going to come on the podcast probably eventually someday. Speedrunner dude.
Yeah.
But and then Matt Pitbrawl is a big presence in the stream. Our stream. Oh my god, it's I just have so much love for it. It's like it's mine. Sorry.
I mean, you're there for every
I'm a
single
mod,
one, so
right?
it's like, I get
so
it,
right,
you know?
I'm a mod, so I can say it.
You're
Anyways,
the OG mod.
both of them are huge Pokemon players, like huge. They're those are their most favorite games, if I'm not mistaken, and they would probably poke all kinds of holes in everything I just said, as far as saying no, there's major differences and there's games that did things totally different. It's like, again, I think for the Pokemon fans and players, yes, those exist. For someone like me, there's too much similarity that it just eventually takes me out of it a little bit. But I'm also like, I'm a casual gamer anyways. So I'm never going to ever be quite like Mass Effect is the only, I would consider myself somewhat of an expert at the lore of Mass Effect, but not the gameplay.
Sure.
So same thing with all of these things. So I'm definitely not the authority, but I think that's I think a lot of gamers are like me though. So I think it's a worthy perspective to have. For sure.
I think like I'm definitely the kind of gamer that I would love to go back and like, even just like if I were to stream it, like I want to go back and play a game that I love so much that like I just know so much about it that as I play it, it's not like now where we're playing Silent Hill 2, and a lot of it is like I didn't play the original Silent Hill 2, so I don't know anything about the game. And so we're going through it. I'm exploring things. I'm going around corners very cautiously. Every time we find something, things pop out and scare the shit out of me. Sometimes it's like I'm like, I'm playing it as a brand new set of eyes, new mindset, like brand new game to me. Yeah. Whereas it'd be kind of cool to like go back and like play like Ocarina of Time, where like I know where everything is, I know what you have to do, and so you would just watch me just blast through the game, and it'd be kind of fun to like go back and just do a game like that. Yeah, like I've played Baldur's Gate 3 enough times that if I didn't do like a stream game, like, oh, everybody, we're going to go through and, we're going to play it as if this is like the first time we play it, and we're going to listen to everybody's dialogue, and we're going to talk about these things, and we're going to, strategize and stuff. Like, if I was just like, hey, watch me just kick the shit out of this game, it would go so fast. Because I know
I would enjoy watching you do that. I definitely think you should put that on the menu for the stream sometime. Just as
you think so?
Oh yeah, totally. I love to watch people who are good at a game just play the fuck out of that game and just like watch. I love that. Watch this and just boom. I love it. So I definitely think that would be super entertaining.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where I've played Baldur's Gate 3 so many times that I think my last like personal playthrough, I don't think I did a single bit of dialogue. Like I go up and I'm just like yeah. And the best part is like when I go up to these things, like, and someone's like, if like my kid would have been like, oh well, what were they talking about? And I was like, I could sum that up. Like I've played this so many times, like I know exactly what we're talking about at this exact moment.
Why'd you
like
skip
it doesn't
that?
matter.
Why'd you skip that? Oh, I know what she said. She said blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Said this, that, and the other thing, and then our response would have been this, and that's why we chose this path, and this is what we're gonna do, and so it doesn't actually matter. And so like sometimes that's like really fun for me, like to just absolutely blast through a game like that.
Well, that's like, it reminds me of when you were playing Mass Effect 1, and I started it, and then I texted you, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. And you're like, wait, what? And it's like, well, I know what I need. I know what's important carrying forward, and then otherwise, and I know what decisions to make, so I don't mess around. You just get through it.
Yeah, you gave me like 3 weeks to like play the game, and then you started playing it again, and then by the time I got on the ship and went to the next planet, you were like starting the second, game, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this is bullshit, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
what are you
in.
talking
I
about?
got to Mass Effect 3. I with that playthrough. I always Mass Effect 3 is always where I end up slowing down just because there's so much you have to do.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to your original question, which one I would like to be remade. I think the issue is that there are some games where I don't trust the studio has the chops to make the game the way I feel like it should be made. Like,
well, I'm saying
some of these.
If you weren't afraid of that, like if the game
True,
could
you're right.
fully
just take
be
that completely out of it. Just
yeah.
Honestly, the one that comes to mind is Chrono Trigger.
What?
Yeah. That is one of the only old 64-bit RPGs that has actually the story has actually captured my attention, and I wanted to keep playing. It is, and so it would be basically getting like the Final Fantasy VII treatment, and that I would love to see that. That game is so influential. You play that game and you hear these story beats and you're like, I've seen this in this game. I've seen this in this game. I've seen this done in some way in this game. And it is so you could just tell it literally influenced so many RPGs going forward that I would love to see it done. And I think that it is old enough that they would have a lot of freedom to really enhance some of the things and maybe add some really cool parts to it that basically allow it to have the same impact as that version did back in the day when it released. Yeah,
That's awesome. I think if I can figure it out, I'll put a picture of it somewhere in while we're talking about this. But it is I just looked it up. The first thing I noticed that the main character definitely has like Goku hair.
Yeah.
And it looks very cool. Definitely something that I definitely would have played on like my Game
it's
Boy
a
or something.
Squaresoft, which is now Square Enix. Like it's the kings of that style of gameplay. Again, I haven't played a lot of those because turn-based is not my favorite, and I just the age of those games and reading everything and it's just not there for me. I'm a late bloomer with gaming, so but that one I've put in hours into that game already.
Well, there's going to be a game that I'm going to be playing at some point on stream. I just have to figure out when I'm going to do it. But it is definitely one of my top 5 like games that I've ever played. And I would love to see it fully remade.
Yeah.
And done so well. But it's the Time Splitter series. There's 3 games, and they're batshit crazy.
Is there another one? Are they making a new one though?
If they are, then awesome. But I don't think so. I don't know. But
I might have heard wrong.
Nuts, and like the games are just so fun, and like
I've heard. I remember stuff about them.
Blasting through the first one. I remember like when I played the second one, I was like, I'm not doing anything all weekend, and this is like when I was growing up, in my household growing up, it was, you went and did stuff during the week, and you had school, even on like. When it was like summer break, like go do shit, like limited amount of game time. So when I did have that time to like really sit down and play like a game, I had to blast through it. Like there was no just jumping around trying to refigure things out. It was like, this is my time. I get to play a game. This is where I'm going to go. And it was all forward. And I remember like sitting down and being like, I have a full weekend and I'm going to blast through this game because I wanted to. It was so fun.
Is what I'm doing right now, buddy, and it's so fun. I haven't had a weekend like this in so long.
Well, you're playing Veilguard right now, right?
I took a much needed minute to come talk to you. But man, we are. Yeah. By the time this podcast releases, it'll been out for a little bit. Guys, listen, just a quick little thing. Don't play the game for yourself. Don't let the reviews mess with you. I'm not saying it's going to be the best thing you ever
Yeah.
played. I'm not saying you're going to feel like this is BioWare back to their best. I think it's a great game. That's all.
Yeah.
I know that's not the episode, but there you go.
No, I mean, I love it because I ended up, I saw the reviews. I didn't want to buy it.
Yeah.
I was really afraid. But then I saw somebody who was like, hey, the game is not marketed to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
The game is marketed to the people who loved Dragon Age games.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I've loved all of the Dragon Age games except for Inquisition. And it's not because it was a bad game. It was not for me.
I think the reason you didn't like Inquisition was the same reasons that Inquisition is definitely not my most favorite game, even though it was game of the year it released. It had some major bloat issues and pacing issues. And I feel like this game takes care of all of that, at least so far.
I've seen so many great things. And the one thing I will say, just as like, you and I as people who play, the games when we can, we love the games that we play, and we have a huge respect for like the gaming industries and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And is that like these games cannot be compared to other companies' games.
Yep.
And that is like a big thing that I feel like we're falling into, which is like Baldur's Gate 3 set a huge standard.
Mm-hmm.
But Baldur's Gate 3 is not every game.
Exactly.
Dragon Age games are not Baldur's Gate, games. Baldur's Gate is solely like a video game version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Age is still a video game series.
Exactly.
Like, those are video games.
There are things about Baldur's Gate 3 that I frankly don't love. I do not like the silent protagonist. I vastly prefer if I can hear my responses spoken out. I understand in that game it's necessary because they are literally having you say exactly what is put out on the dialogue choices. I understand. It makes sense. I get it. I don't knock it. I just like it better when my protagonist has a voice and talks, because it feels like I can feel more connected with the character. Some people say the exact opposite. They're like, I like that I read it, I say it out loud, and it's just me, and I feel more connected. That doesn't work for me. And then secondly, turn-based. I already said it. Turn-based is never going to be my most favorite in a video game. Sure. So like they're like Baldur's Gate 3, insane, wonderful game. But yeah, exactly what you're saying. It is its own thing. Let's let Dragon Age speak for itself. Comes from its own struggling yet previously legendary studio. Let's give them a chance here. And I think they did a great job overall.
Yeah, fantastic. It really was. It was fantastic. I think it's,
and I'd love to see the Dragon Age games remade, the first two, 1 and 2. They would be good. They would be good.
Dude, they were great
remakes.
They were great games. Fantastic. Another one that I wanted to talk about, which was Remade, which I think did a pretty good job for what the game was, but they also still added a bunch of things to it to make it kind of feel like its own game. And I feel like skateboarding games have really declined over the years, especially since they've been trying to implement a lot more of the like, the way that your feet would have to move to be able to do a trick. They have implemented the same deal with like the sticks. I don't like that. I enjoy, like, I go off a half pipe, I'm like 50 feet up in the air, let me hold some different buttons down to do some other stuff. Like,
like more arcade style, more like,
right. And that's not like I know it's a lot of it's geared to like, skateboarders and stuff, but also like a lot of these skateboarders that you're trying to market these games to, they don't give a shit about the video game. They're actually outside doing the fucking tricks. You know what I mean?
Like what? Like video game?
Yeah.
Dude, I got a half pipe in my backyard.
Exactly. Yeah. So these guys make the game for the rest of us who tried to skateboard as a kid and didn't go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Like the best thing that we were able to figure out were like ollies and dropping in and stuff. But
crazy though. Just a little side note. Did you see the Olympics? How all the Olympian skateboarders are all like 12, 13, 14, 15?
I think
Like,
that's our age, bro. I think we've gotten to a point where like we're watching this stuff and you're like, oh, cool, that 11-year-old just
but
like
the
cleared.
Olympics though, like they're the
Yeah.
best in the world at it. I'm just that crazy to me.
Well, I mean,
But
I wouldn't say they're the best in the world, but I will say like,
or at least up there, they're going to the
yeah,
Olympics.
like Tony Hawk has hit some serious like Tony Hawk is getting to a point where like one day he's gonna be like, listen, I can't skateboard anymore. We're gonna be like, yeah, man, of course you can't. You're 85.
I know he doesn't. He definitely doesn't perform quite to the level that he did in his prime anymore. But
and I'm like, so like a lot of the guys that like I watched like growing up, I'm like, yeah, these guys were the best of the best.
maybe that's why, because they all get injured and can't do it.
Oh my god,
And
they're
it's
old as shit. And
It's
yeah,
just
they,
the little kids with their rubber bones.
of course,
because they can do anything and just heal in 2 weeks. So
yeah, and like and these like professionals. I mean, you gotta say like these professionals, they definitely still have the skill.
yeah,
They've definitely put in the hard work and stuff. But the difference is when they miss the trick and they hit the side of the wall, at 180 miles an hour, they're not going to just stand up and go, ah, man, that hurt.
Yeah.
It's like half of their body is broken now. Like they're just not at a point where this
I may
happens.
limp for the rest of my life.
Oh my, yeah, dude. These 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, wherever, doing like crazy tricks, wherever they smash their heads, they get up and they drink a juice box and they're fine. The rest of us who are getting older, we're like, dude, oh my god, like half of us, like, dude, I felt my hip pop the other day when I got out of bed, and I was like, oh, cool, this is life now. We were just talking about this the other day, where I was like, if you go back like a couple hundred years, like the life expectancy was like 30 something, and I was like, great. I'm at the point where if I was in any other time, like I would be considered old, wise, and close to death. But modern medicine's going to keep me alive for another 40 to 50 years. And I got to just slowly decay and lose my motor skills and stuff. Like, I can't die as a warrior anymore. Now I got to die shit in my pants and eating Withers or Werther's Originals. What the fuck are they called?
Yeah, Werther's Originals. They're pretty good. Oh, shit.
Yeah,
I'm getting old.
Ah!
No, it's happening.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I think for the rest of us, remake the skateboard games.
Yeah.
To that we can sit here and feel like how we used to feel. But they remade
the Tony Hawk ones, or some of them?
Pro Skater 1 and 2. Yeah. And it was great. And I still like. The difference that I wasn't a fan of is they changed the original soundtracks. I still have the original soundtracks to the Nintendo 64 Pro Skater on my phone. It's still one of my favorite soundtracks. Just like that
stupid
grungy,
licensing issues. They didn't want to pay, or they couldn't for whatever reason.
Yeah,
damn it.
That was back when
that's the reason those games. One of the reasons people.
Yeah,
it was a vibe. Yeah,
dude. And Activision had such a sick intro that anytime you turn on the PlayStation and you get the kind of sound in, and then the game would start, and you would just see the Activision symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this thing would just be skateboarding with no head, and then it would get caught with this big ass eye, right? This huge eye would get it, and the skateboard would flip off. The guy would fall down, and this big ass spike would just plunge right through the eye. And you're like I don't know, 10-year-old, and you're like, yeah, eye just gets impaled, blood goes everywhere. It's just a headless dude on the floor, and you're like, that's a fucking game, And then they're like, now get out there, kids, and go skateboard. And now you don't get that anymore.
Yeah,
dude,
for sure.
It was great.
Yeah, I think that those games, those were, because I feel like in general, my view is, I know budgets, I know this and that. I feel like a lot of the times a game should not be remastered, it should be remade. I just think that's generally how it should be. I think those games were an example of, no, the remake is sufficient because we don't want to, it would have, you don't want to change really too much about that, because we literally don't like what more modern skateboarding games are doing. So don't do that. Let us
Yeah.
have this again. Let us have it remastered so it looks a little better on our big fancy TVs. But don't fuck with it too much. And I think that was probably a good. And they didn't charge crazy amounts of money for it either. So they.
Well, and I also think we've gone from it kind of go back to like the technology thing. Like when I was playing this game, when I was playing like the PlayStation, my Nintendo 64 and stuff,
Mhm.
I was also playing on a 12-inch box television that fit inside of my like dresser, cabinet part, right? And like the doors
So
would be
cool.
shut, and I would open it up, and there would be my TV and my PlayStation stuff, and I'd have to sit like because kids controllers back then had cords attached to them, and you couldn't unplug them. So if your dog heard the doorbell and ran to the front door at Mach 12, it would rip not only your controller out, but it would like every cord ever imaginable to your entire setup. So like, I am sitting there and I got like a 50-foot cord on there for some reason. And I'm playing, like, I don't know, a foot away from the screen, back when like the box TV would make like static sounds and like you could feel your eyebrows and hair just like sticking up as you're playing the game and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. You're like, I'm feeling the pores on my face just slowly pulling off of my body and stuff. Yeah. And you're like, this was my childhood. This was awesome. But like now we have amazing technology with like televisions these days where you get 4K and stuff. And you go back and you play like an old game and you're like, well, this is
that's why
horrible,
you have to have one of those old TVs because damn, I got one
better on them.
Sits over there. Man, those games look good.
They look so good on those old ones.
They look so good. And they try, you can get those like retro things where like put scan lines on, but it's like, no, it just doesn't work. You got to hear the little.
We're not looking for the feel of it. It's the light.
Yeah.
It's the
curve,
likeness.
The way it curved
my God.
and stuff.
It was the best.
Mm-hmm. They look
so
good. That's where it's like, people are like, this game didn't look this bad when we were kids. No, it didn't. It was made for a different display that displayed the pixels a lot sharper. It looked a lot better.
Our televisions were so shit, we didn't notice how bad the game looked.
There is that too.
Now you have a 4K television, and it shows all of the stupid shit that we like. I remember like my old TV. If you got close enough to the screen, you could see the individual pixels and lights.
You're
and
like,
stuff.
There ain't that many here. I could count them if I really wanted.
Oh my
to.
God, yeah. You're like, oh, I got like 18 in this, corner over here.
Oh shoot,
it was the best. And it made the games just feel so much better, and they would look so much better because they were better on those. Yeah,
they were they were purpose built, and that's why they get remastered. Is let's try to make them perform and look better on this modern hardware.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it works, but overall, I think remaking a game makes more sense.
Now, I want to ask, we'll do one last subject here because I think this one is probably the doozy of the difference between a remake and a remaster.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think when, obviously when you remaster a game, you're just making it look more pretty. And you probably are you're probably including all of the DLC content in that remastered version. So like it's just all in one place. You don't have to buy a bunch of extra shit, basically like the way that the game was originally supposed to be presented. But when you remake a game, how much should be added in your opinion to that game for it to be worth the remake? And what I mean by this is like, if you're adding things like you've said before, you play the game and you're like, this is what I remember, but we've added things. Maybe there's more things to explore. There's more weapons you can grab. There's more this, that, and the other thing. All these like other things that you can now do in the remake that you couldn't have done in the original game. How much is too much, and how much should you just at that point name it an entirely new game?
I think if you are maintaining the same locations, characters, and story beats, then it has to be considered a remake. What I think makes a remake worth it is not just a revamp to where the controls and visuals and art style is more similar to is up with modern games. I think that we need to improve, maybe flesh out how a story, especially in these RPGs, we can make how a story is told maybe a lot more fleshed out. We can add so much more detail and explorability to these locations and buildings and things. We can add in uh some side quests that really help bolster and connect you to the world that they've built. They can add side questing that doesn't necessarily change the huge, but it might add maybe some backstory, or add some really cool again, something that was just mentioned in a conversation. Now you get to go and maybe do or be a part of. And then where you can maybe add some new areas. I think that, again, that don't completely change the story, but maybe an area that is brought up a bunch, and people probably always like, man, I wish we could go to there. How many times have you played these old games? It's like, stop talking about that town. Can I go to that town? And you never get to go to that town in those old games. Or you get to go to the town and it's like, you get one street. You know what I mean? So like, let's expand that. Let's make this game feel and behave like we are releasing it for the very first time. Like, that's just how if you're remaking a game, the story speaks for itself, but everything else about it, I think you need to treat it like you're trying to sell this for the first time.
Yeah, I was thinking, I agree with everything you said. My thought was, like, I went to, back to Ocarina of Time. It seems to be like the main, one there. It's like, you don't have to, for me, like, you don't have to change like anything with like story or puzzles or, whatever. What I would love to see is that everything doesn't feel so empty.
Yep.
Like, exactly. It had to feel empty because of the, storage space that the game originally was able to have. Now, like, a standard game these days is anywhere between like 60 and like 120 gigs. When I downloaded Nintendo 64's version of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, it was like, I don't know, 60 megabytes or something. It was such a tiny game.
Yeah.
Like my phone could handle the entire game.
Oh yeah, and people do play Ocarina of Time on their phones.
And so it's very like I would love to see, like, if you end up remaking the game, put more trees, put more enemies, put more, this, that, and the other thing. Oh, you don't have to add more shops, you don't have to add more, inventories, like, stuff. But like, make it so that when I'm traveling to another place, it feels dangerous. It feels like I'm, traveling to another place. I'm not just doing the hip hop roll all the way across to the next area, because that was probably one of the most brutal parts about that entire game, was that how empty everything is, and you just have to roll to your next area because, Link can't run for shit.
Yeah. What would be your thoughts of, they have modern Zelda games, they've made two modern Zelda games. What do you think about that style, that look? Would you enjoy that type of thing? Or are you thinking along the lines of more like what they did with Final Fantasy VII, where it's like they made it into this kind of photorealistic styling of a
So game? I didn't play the Final Fantasy one.
They just made it look like all their modern Final Fantasy games.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think the last one I played was it like 11 or something? It was very weird story mode where you could actually go between like just like live action or
they're too much for
and
me.
it was like you had a car that you had to like upgrade and keep up and stuff, but you could never actually drive it. It was more of like a fast travel thing, but it wasn't fast. You were just in the back seat, and it didn't make sense. But it was a fun game for what it was.
I know they are, for the people that enjoy those games. They're good games. Not at all. That's a me thing.
I think to see like I love Breath of the Wild was amazing. Tears of the Kingdom was incredible. I think that those games were definitely in their own category, but I would love to see Like I wouldn't mind if they remade Ocarina of Time in the same version or same way that they did like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Definitely can't implement the like if Tears of the Kingdom Link went into Ocarina of Time, the game would be over in 5 minutes. There would be no comparison.
Yeah.
But that art style, that story style, that openness, that open worldness, yeah, I would love to see. I think
to be fair,
people
say that Breath of the Wild was a spiritual successor to Ocarina of Time in a sense.
It technically, yes. In timeline wise, yes.
They say that it is. That was their attempt to create this era's Ocarina of Time,
and I think they did a fantastic job. It really was, incredible.
So I think that's probably what Nintendo will say. Well, no, we're not going to remake it. We're going to be inspired by it and create new adventures. And
I think that's why. I think that's why, honestly, I was so shocked to see this year's release because, we had Breath of the Wild, and then we waited 6, 7, 8 years. For Tears of the Kingdom, and we're like, bam, Tears of the Kingdom is so good. And then 1 year later, and they're like, we got another Legend of Zelda game, and we're like, no shit, fuck yeah, what do you got for us, And then they're like, here, have you ever wanted to play a Game Boy Advanced game on your big flat screen television? And we're like, no. And they're like, well, good, because here it is. And also, it's not like anything that you've played before because it's just Zelda, but also Zelda's got abilities. And so I guess, I don't know. I think my biggest issue with this is that Zelda to me has always been chic. So the ninja-y badassness. And that, but you in the new game, was it something of wisdom or something like that?
Yeah.
It's you've kind of made Zelda more of a wizard. That I don't know. I haven't played it, so I don't know. Maybe my thoughts would change if I played it, but
they remade,
that's my general vibe.
They remade Link's Awakening in that
I heard that was cool
art style, and that was a big. And I have it. I played it. It's good. I didn't finish it.
The original game is very outdated.
Yeah, exactly.
So the original Link's Awakening, the remake for Link's Awakening is definitely justified.
Exactly.
Because the original Link's Awakening is black and white.
But it
very,
was
very
an interesting choice to go with that kind of updated Game Boy Advance style, for sure. It looks cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's just interesting that is there. It's like their second tier Zelda games are now this kind of mobile-y almost look. I think people really like it, and because it's kind of it's kind of fits in that dungeon crawly, thing. It kind of feels like Cult of the Lamb-ish, with the you go from room to room and kind of go. So people really like those types of games. So I think it scratches an itch, but. Yeah, definitely an interesting direction to go with having you play as Zelda and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me, but I do get what you're saying. How it's it doesn't in your head canon of the Zelda because you're, as you've talked about on this podcast, you know so much about the lore and how everything connects. It just is wait, this feels like we're kind of.
I also think that through all of the Legend of Zelda games, you are Link. Notoriously, you are Link.
It's like a huge departure.
And that's the big joke. Is everybody's like, I know we're trying to be accurate and stuff, but why are we making Zelda a girl? And you're like, it's because you don't know shit, scrub. And so it's one of those things. But I don't know. It's. Honestly, maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'll wait for it to go on sale. I'll play it. I'll have a new review. But we'll
just
see what
an
happens.
interesting take. They did a remake, and then that remake. So now we are making a brand new game based on how the remake did.
The remake,
yeah,
right?
so interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, Nintendo just they do it the way they want to do it. I'll tell you.
as we come to the end of the show, I want to know, because I was going to ask, at the end of the show, but we talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
What games are you playing right now? So we know that you're deep into Veilguard. So I want to know at this point right now,
Yeah.
as much as you've played this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll play probably after we end this recording.
Mm-hmm.
What is your honest, brutal review? We are something more than anyone else. We do not do the industry bullshit reviews.
Yeah.
I want a very real, crucial, positive, whatever, real review out of 10. And why?
Still have a long way to go to actually see a lot of the story beats actually realize and see how they finish off. So definitely first impressions. My first impressions, I'm giving it like a solid 7.5, which for me is a high score.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, on my 7.5 is high for me, especially for first impressions. I truly believe it is so far a valiant effort from a studio that knows they've done wrong to truly give it all they can to get back to get back to the storytelling and the environment building and the emotional stakes that they were so good at in the past. And I'm feeling it. It definitely has some places where, but again, I would say try to go without hearing. I'm not even going to bring up some of the people's things, because I just don't even put that stuff in your head, and I don't think you'll notice it. Because I don't think it's really a thing. It's one person's nitpick that isn't actually a real thing, unless you've heard that it's a nitpick, and then you're like, oh, I guess I see that, and it's like, but I wouldn't have cared, and so
right.
So yeah, 7.5. I'm really loving it. I've heard its sales numbers are really good, even if some of the reviews are mixed. My very first review I watched was the guy said it's my personal game of the year. So then to go from that, and it's a guy that I trust, who 100%s every game before he reviews them. I've brought him up on the podcast before, Mortissimo Gaming. He puts the work in. So so to switch from that to some of what other people said, it's just like, it's clearly just, it's going to be what. So I might like it better than you, but that doesn't, but I don't think you're going to dislike it by any stretch.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to dislike it.
I think you're going to, you have your beloved RPG. And I don't think, I think that will always be there for you. But I think you'll find this as a little bit maybe less intense, just kind of fun time.
Yeah, well, I'm also the kind of person who I'm very good at giving the game a chance based on the game itself.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
And like I have no problem like judging a game based on what the previous like installment of that game was. So like if it's Dragon Age 2, I will base my quality of fun off of my experience in comparison to when I played Dragon Age 1.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. So it's like that kind of thing. But I do a very good job of like understanding that like Baldur's Gate 3 is its own thing, Veilguard is completely its own thing, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is entirely its own thing, Silent Hill 2 is entirely its own thing, Black Myth Wukong entirely its own thing. So like when I do my like based off of like, do I like the game, do I not like the game, it's not based on like I've had more fun playing other games. It's that like am I having fun playing this specific game.
And I just think you got to lean into what the game is doing until the end of the game, then decide. Like I am giving the game the benefit of the doubt. I am leaning in. I'm saying, ooh, that's cool what you just said. Whoa, look at that. Like I am giving it the benefit of the doubt. I am leaning in. And, as long as they pay off by the end of the game, I'll be happy. So, and that'll be where my true thoughts come through is how they land the plane. So,
hey, Noah, where can we find you? Where can we check out your content? Where can we find you on social medias?
You could definitely find me on YouTube. Noah Chapman is the channel, but Nerdy Noah Reads is probably easier to get to find me. I post intermittently about different news releases in the nerd space. A lot of D&D stuff. That's my
Oh,
true
that's right.
love. That's my
We
true
gotta,
game.
yeah, we gotta do the player's handbook still.
Yeah, we talked about it on my. I have an episode out on that, on the player's handbook. But yeah, we should talk about it for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where you'll find me, and then obviously most every weekend you'll find me hanging out in the chat at Phoenix Stewart Streams.
Yeah, it's a good time. Everybody makes fun of me, and I try not to cry publicly. Yeah, for the show, we've said it a billion times. I mean, if you've gotten to episode whatever this ends up being, you should know the drill by this time. But if you haven't,
This one's
we're
gonna
everywhere
pop off
and
dude.
anywhere.
I just know it.
It's gonna be nuts.
Yeah.
This one's gonna go freaking batshit crazy. We're on TikTok, on Instagram. We're all over anywhere you find podcasts. We're also on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces, smiling and laughing away. And
Sexy beasts right here. I'm telling you.
Yeah, at some point I'm just flexing my muscles all the time, bro.
Yeah. I'm hiding them under this sweater.
Yeah.
To be too much for the people.
So please go check those out. Please go check out Noah's content. You'll find us on social media. If you can hang out in our Discord, which will also be in our links, go check us out there. It's always a good time. It's always fun. I always like to say, if you want to hang out with me and see the content that I'm making, check out the podcast. Check out the streams. If you want to hang out with my wife while everybody basically woos over her for some reason, go check out the Discord. But until next time, Noah, thank you so much for being here tonight, or today, whatever. What time is it?
Yeah, we're getting there.
Afternoon, I guess. Thank you for being here on this episode. I really do appreciate it. I love every time you're on here. I was just enjoy just having those, blanketed subjects where we can just kind of go off and have a good conversation.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
So
I appreciate it.
Awesome to be here. Love it every time. Can't wait to be back.
For the rest of you, you know it, you love it. Woof, stutter time. Go outside, look up at the sky, feel the sun on your face, hug a tree, high five a squirrel, and I will catch you on the next episode.